Welcome to Volume 14 of River Stories with Captain Harold DeMarrero. Cap, you got a little bit of a beard. Do you want to tell everybody why you got the long beard?
Well, I grow the beard every year for Christmas. I play Santa Claus for several little kids, take pictures. It's a lot of fun. It's not something I do professionally. And, you know, in future videos, you're going to see this gone.
You just starting to look homeless a little bit.
Yeah, right.
Okay, you just wanted to start today talking about some of the boats you was captain of in the early part of your career. I know some of them was kind of small.
Yeah.
Take it away there.
Well, my first boat was a boat called, it didn't even have a name, they called it the Iron Boat. It was about 40 feet long and about 12 feet wide. And it had a gasoline engine in it. It was 85 horsepower. And I used to move little fuel barges up and down Wolf River. It was in Memphis there. And then my next boat I got was called the Muskrat. It had 160 horsepower and, you know, just a wheel, and it didn't no radio, no nothing, just throttle. And these boats, my grandfather built these little old boats, and it was the basics, like to put the engines in gear, there was a piece of pipe going through some pieces of steel, and it would go back to the clutch, and you'd have to pull that pipe to get it to go forward, and pull it back to neutral, and then pull it back to get it to go in reverse.
Good thing they didn't have OSHA back then.
Oh, really? But, you know, that was the way I was learning to be a pilot, you know. You got to go out and really learn it on your own, even though you've been taught to how to steer a boat and maneuver a boat. To have your own boat, you have to do it on your own. And I was proud of those little boats. And then I went from there to the grocery boat that I operated for the guy that was going to take 78 cents out of my pay. I was making $10 a day, you know. That's a lot of money he's going to take out of my check. And then I left there and then went to the Frank Phipps, which was the boat that I talked about earlier that ended up sinking and was a tragic part of my life. And then from there, basically to the Helrich. And the Helrich was the boat that I got on at Wilson Lock, going up to Tennessee, and I came on watch at midnight.
How many horsepower was that one?
900. That was
900.
a big dog, man.
From 85 to 900.
Yeah, right. So I was, and it, you know, had private room for the pilot and the captain had their own private room. I thought I was in something heaven, you know. And but the night that I got on there,
how'd you change forward reverse on the Helrich?
Oh, it had some throttles, you know, that put it in gear and then push forward on it to go faster.
A little easier.
Oh yeah, yeah. It was all hydraulic, and so was the steering. So it was quite an improvement for me. But you know, I told you about getting these barges aground for 3 days, and oh boy, that was totally embarrassing. We got them off, and then I operated very successfully for several more months. Up and down the Tennessee, and we was carrying asphalt from Knoxville over to Wood River, Illinois, which was just north of St. Louis. And so the fellow that I was working for, he got another boat, and basically this second boat he got was a boat called the Montgomery, and it was a total freak of a boat. It was built for the Warrior River back when, and it was like 26 feet wide and 140 feet long. And originally it had been steam powered, and they took the steam engine out and put a diesel engine in it. And if you understood the law the way things were back then, if you were operating on a diesel boat, you didn't have to have any kind of a license. If you were operating on a steamboat, you had to be fully licensed by the government. So these boats that I was operating on, you didn't have to have a license for. So anyway, I did pretty successful with this guy. Then he bought the second boat, the old Montgomery, and then he offered me a captain's job on there. And back then we had two captains. We worked 30 days and off 30 days. And for 30 days I was captain of it. It had a up and down pilot house, which was invented by my great uncle. You ever see these tugs and things where the pilot house goes up on a ram, comes back down? My great uncle invented that, but he couldn't get anything out of it because they told him, because the way he had thought of doing it, and had the very first boat doing it, he just saw a car being lifted up down at the lift where it changed the oil and stuff, and he says, if it'll lift a car, it'll lift the pilot house. So he came up with that, but never really got anything out of it other than the fact that he did it, you know.
Just another innovation your family brought to riverboating.
Yeah, right. But this boat had one of those hydraulic pilot houses, and one of the great stories, you know, those boats were like, all the power for the crew was DC power. So you had to have a special radio or anything to operate, had to operate on direct current, DC. The only place on that boat that was any AC power was in our coming from a converter to operate our marine radio, which was AC power. So we was buying groceries at this little place in Beardstown, Illinois. It was running up and down the Illinois River. And the place where in Beardstown we bought our groceries from, we told the guy, we need a radio to listen to the World Series. So he said, I can fix you up. So man, he sent us out this radio, and it was one of the real old-fashioned radios.
Who was the Yankees playing that year?
I can't remember who.
So if it was in the 50s, I know the Yankees was in there.
Right, that's right.
What was it, back to the radio?
Well, anyway, we took the radio and we had to have it very close to the pilot house in order to get AC current to it. We plugged it into the converter that operated our main radio and had it sitting on a stool out there. And then we was going up, everybody's listening to the World Series, man, and it was everybody that was really into everything. And we was going up to a bridge, and the pilot, he lowered the pilot house, and the eave on the pilot house, and crushed that radio in 100 pieces, man. And that was the end of the World Series. How embarrassed we all were that we didn't think about it, you know. But that's the way the cookie crumbles, you know. So anyway, I went from there. I got a job back into the St. Louis Harbor. They took the original boat, the Hellridge, and put it moving barges just in the St. Louis Harbor to all the different fleets and things like that. And so that was right down my alley, you know, a fleet boat again. So I went back and stayed on the boat and worked up and down the harbor. And then all of a sudden, my boss told me that we've got a contract with Sinclair. I'm taking that boat and we're going to move these barges down the river to New Orleans. Well, he said, I want you to be on it. I want you to do it. And I said, well, all right. And then we put the barges together. Then he decided to add 6 more barges, 3 more on each side for this little old boat. It just didn't have the power, and the river was flooding. And so I quit. I said, that's it.
Okay, Cap, we're going to wrap it up and get back to this, some other volume of River Stories. This ends it for chapter 14. Thank you very much for watching.